Hey everyone, welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Alyssa Ashe, and I'm so honored to bring you your nightly news recap on August 15th, 2018. Thank you so much for joining in with us today. We have a lot of great people in the chat room. I want to just welcome some real quick, as always, before I get started. Let's see our moderators that are here. RSBN moderator or Mod Mom is here, and Real Frank in Florida. And it looks like we have some members as well. JC, Mark Hannibal, DM. And let's see, James Wolfe is here today. And Malik Gregerson. And Gregory Ashe, or my dad. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. It's going to be such a fun night. I have a variety of stories, of course, political stories, national and business stories, and world. So stay tuned for all of that. And as you guys know, I want to always hear your stories too, stories that are important to you that I may have missed today throughout the news cycle. So don't forget to send those over to me on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN. And I will throw up that Twitter handle real quick right here at the bottom, just so that you guys will be able to see it. Now, it was a really interesting day. We were able to bring you the White House press briefing with Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders. That was pretty good, pretty calm. The mainstream media did not get too crazy today. So that was definitely good. And I'll actually be starting out with a story that she mentioned actually in her opening statement during the White House press briefing about President Trump revoking the security clearance of ex-CIA Director John Brennan. And there are some others that he's looking at removing the security clearance of as well. So we're going to get into that. I have some information for you guys from Reuters. So today, President Trump moved to penalize a sharp critic, revoking the security clearance of Obama-era CIA Director John Brennan for making what he called a series of unfounded and outrageous allegations about his administration. And President Trump also, in a statement read to reporters by White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders, also announced he was evaluating whether other high-ranking former officials, all of whom have criticized him, should have their security clearances withdrawn as well. So the decision came a day after Brennan, who headed the CIA under President Barack Obama, leveled a blistering attack on President Trump for his tweeted criticism of former White House aide Omarosa Manigault Newman, who wrote a book, Unhinged, critical of President Trump, as you all know. And Brennan wrote, "It's astounding how you fail to live up to minimum standards of decency, civility, and propriety. Seems like you will never understand what it means to be president, nor what it takes to be a good, decent, and honest person. So disheartening, so dangerous for our nation." And President Trump, without mentioning specific comments that had been made by Brennan, said the former CIA leader had engaged in a frenzied commentary and sought to sow division and chaos about the Trump administration. And President Trump said, "Mr. Brennan has recently leveraged his status as a former high-ranking official with access to highly sensitive information to make a series of unfounded and outrageous allegations, wild outbursts on the internet and television about the administration." And Brennan, in a tweet, would not back down. He said, "This action is part of a broader effort by Mr. Trump to suppress freedom of speech and punish critics. It should gravely worry all Americans, including intelligence professionals, about the cost of speaking out. My principles are worth far more than clearances. I will not relent." And President Trump said he also may revoke the clearances of other critics, including former U.S. National Intelligence Director James Clapper, former FBI Director James Comey, former Obama National Security Advisor Susan Rice, former National Security Agency Director Michael Hayden, and former Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, among others. And also on the list was Bruce Orr, a current Justice Department official in the crime division. And of course, President Trump is facing some criticism for this, even from Republican lawmakers who gave mixed reviews of President Trump's decision, with some criticizing it and others saying Brennan had acted inappropriately with his comments about the president. Republican Senator Bob Corker said, "I don't like it at all. It feels very much like a banana republic kind of thing." And Brennan has frequently appeared on cable news shows and sent out lashing tweets to attack Trump's foreign policy positions. And he was very biting about the president's joint news conference with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Helsinki a month ago. President Trump said he tended to believe Putin's denials about Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election, despite the U.S. intelligence community view that Moscow was to blame. And Brennan suggested in a tweet that President Trump could be impeached, saying his performance in Helsinki rises to and exceeds the threshold of high crimes and misdemeanors and was nothing short of treasonous. Now, high-ranking government officials sometimes retain their security clearances after leaving office, allowing them the ability to provide advice to others, to provide advice as needed to their successors. And President Trump said, "At this point in my administration, any benefits that senior officials might glean from consultations with Mr. Brennan are now outweighed by the risks posed by his erratic conduct and behavior. That conduct and behavior has tested and far exceeded the limits of any professional courtesy that has been due to him." And Brennan faces no formal charges or allegation of violating any regulations or laws. Another former CIA director, John Deutch, had his security clearance revoked in 1999, 3 years after he resigned as CIA chief, after he violated security rules for keeping classified information on computers at his home. And Ned Price, a former National Security Council spokesman for Obama and former CIA official, said President Trump was trying to shift public attention away from the critical book by Manigault Newman. And Ned Price said the proximate target was John Brennan, but the real intent of today's announcement was to simultaneously shift and silence. And Price said, "The White House knows as well as anyone that Brennan, in his criticism of Trump, has never disclosed classified information. And that's always been the metric when it comes to revocation of clearance." And Hayden asked, when he was asked for his response to Trump's announced review of his security clearance, he just replied in an email, "Meh." And he wrote, "With regard to the implied threat today that I could lose my clearance, that will have no impact on what I think, say, or write." Okay, so checking Twitter to see what you guys sent. Looks like I have one article from Jasmine Ruiz. Thank you so much for that. And it came out today. Okay, and I'm actually going to switch cameras real quick. We have another one set up in our studio so you can get kind of a different view. So this is from Jasmine Ruiz. Thank you so much for sharing it with me. And it's from the Daily Signal. Colorado targets Christian baker again, despite Supreme Court's cake ruling. So the Colorado Civil Rights Commission is going after Christian baker Jack Phillips again, although the Masterpiece Cake Shop owner won a resounding 7-2 decision in June before the U.S. Supreme Court. And the state commission moved against Phillips after a lawyer asked him to pick the design and bake a custom cake celebrating a gender transition, pink on the inside and blue on the outside. And Phillips, who calls himself a cake artist, said the requested cake's message would violate his religious beliefs. The state is, and Phillips said in a prepared statement released by his lawyers, the state is doubling down on its hostility against my beliefs, even though that's what the Supreme Court said they couldn't do. It seems I'm the only person in the state of Colorado who can't live out my beliefs. And the religious liberty group Alliance Defending Freedom, which has represented Phillips since he turned down a gay couple's order 6 years ago for a cake celebrating their marriage, also represents him in a federal lawsuit filed late Tuesday to challenge the latest state action against him. And shortly after its Supreme Court loss, the State Civil Rights Commission informed Phillips that it found probable cause to believe that Colorado law requires his bakery in Lakewood to create the requested gender transition cake. And he said, I serve all customers. I simply decline to create custom cakes that express messages or celebrate events in violation of my deeply held beliefs. And according to the Alliance Defending Freedom, a lawyer identified as Autumn Scardina asked Masterpiece Cake Shop to bake the gender transition cake on June 26, 2017, and that was the same day the Supreme Court agreed to hear Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission, the case involving the wedding cake. And Phillips said of the lawyer's requests for the pink and blue cake, we told him we'd sell him anything in the shop, but we could not create the cake because of the message it conveyed. And Justice Anthony Kennedy, in an opinion joined by 4 conservative justices and 2 liberal justices, ruled nearly a year later on June 4th that the Civil Rights Commission showed hostility toward Phillips and his faith in deciding he had violated state anti-discrimination law by declining to create the cake marking the same-sex marriage. And it is Kristen Wagoner, Senior Vice President for Alliance Defending Freedom, said in a formal statement, it's clear that the state of Colorado did not get the message from the Supreme Court since it is still singling out Jack for punishment and showing hostility toward his religious beliefs. And Scardina, the lawyer who requested the cake celebrating a gender transition, is not a defendant in Phillips' lawsuit. The baker is suing the state commission's members in their official capacities, as well as suing its director personally. So Wagoner, who argued Phillips' case December 5th before the High Court, said in moving ahead on this new complaint, the government is yet again confirming that it applies its law in an arbitrary and unequal way, which the Supreme Court has already said it cannot do. And she said Jack and other creative professionals should not be targeted by the government for living consistently with their religious beliefs. And as a policy, Phillips' lawyers note, Masterpiece Cake Shop does not make custom cakes that celebrate Halloween, that center on alcohol or drug abuse or sexual themes, or that convey disparaging messages, including those targeting lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals or others in the LGBT movement. And Phillips said, "The Bible tells us God created us male and female, and I believe that. A gender transition cake is not something I've ever made, and it's not an event I could celebrate. There are plenty of messages I won't convey on a cake. I've turned down requests to make anti-American cakes, cakes disparaging the LGBT community, as well as those glorifying drug and alcohol abuse, mistreatment of women, divorce, and more." And in the case Phillips won before the Supreme Court, his lawyers stress the state of Colorado admitted that cake artists are free to decline to create custom cakes with a specific design, including wedding cakes with a symbol of gay pride, cakes that contain pro-gay designs or inscriptions, or cakes with images opposing same-sex marriage. And the state has not found probable cause when other bakers refuse to create custom cakes, including those opposing same-sex weddings. So Waggoner said the arbitrary basis on which the commission is applying the law makes it clear that they're simply targeting Jack because they don't like his religious beliefs. Jack shouldn't have to fear government hostility when he opens his shop for business each day. We're asking the court to put a stop to that. And I will show you guys real quick a picture of Jack Phillips working on a different cake. Okay, so there you can see a picture of Jack Phillips working on a different cake. And hopefully he will be able to win this case. Thank you so much, Jasmine Ruiz, for sending it my way. And it looks like British Patriot said we have a new President Trump tweet. So I'm going to check on that, quoting Bongino on Brennan. So I'm going to pull that up real quick. And not now, but a little bit later in the show, we will go through President Trump's tweets from throughout the day. I love always having a little Trump tweet segment. Okay, President Trump tweeted, "John Brennan is a stain on this country. We deserve better than this," according to former Secret Service agent and author of his new book, Spygate, The Attempted Sabotage of Donald J. Trump, Dan Bongino. And he said, "Thank you, Dan, and good luck with the book." Okay, and I'm going to switch back over now to my next story of the day while we are still talking about politics. And I know we'll always come back to politics because that is one of our main focuses here at RSBN. So right now, and this is from Reuters News as well, the Senate is considering a massive spending bill and facing some objections from President Trump. So today, U.S. senators agreed to debate and vote in the next few days on more than $850 billion in spending on defense, labor, and healthcare programs as the Trump administration announced its objections to some parts of the bill. So the so-called minibus appropriations bill includes nearly $675 billion in spending for the Department of Defense, as well as about $182 billion for an array of domestic programs under the Departments of Labor, Health and Human Services, Education, and related agencies. So congressional aides actually said the Senate combined two bills in the hope that President Trump would not veto the domestic spending measure. And President Trump has threatened to shut down the government if Congress, which is controlled by his fellow Republicans, does not adhere to his spending priorities, especially his desire to spend billions of dollars to build a wall on the border with Mexico. Now, earlier today, during the White House press briefing with Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, she was asked if President Trump still meant that he would shut down the government if Congress did not comply. And she said she could not comment on that, but they really wanted to see Congress do what they were supposed to be doing and actually work through some things like immigration. So today, President Trump's administration announced its position on the bill. And while not threatening a veto, the Statement of Administration policy noted that the bill does not include administration proposals to reduce spending in areas such as education and healthcare research. And it also balks at some defense spending reductions, including a $532 billion reduction in Afghanistan security funding and a $406 million cut to fund a train and equip U.S. partner forces in Iraq and Syria for the fight against the Islamic State. And President Trump has threatened a government shutdown several times since taking office in 2017 in a bid to get his immigration priorities in congressional spending bills, especially funding for a wall along the southern U.S. border. And President Trump has asked for $25 billion to build the wall. And Congress must agree on a spending measure to fund the government by September 30th, or the federal government will be forced to suspend all but the most essential operations. And it looks like I got a couple messages from you guys on Twitter. Thank you so much. I'm going to check those out real quick. Wow, I got two really interesting stories from one of our regulars, Nate Skate. Thank you so much for those that I'm going to share with you guys. And this one is really interesting from Gizmodo. So it looks like St. Louis University is putting 2,300 echo dots in student living spaces, and the title is "What Could Go Wrong?" So when students of St. Louis University begin their fall semester this month, they'll notice a new addition on campus: hundreds of glowing blue hockey puck robots. The university has announced that it will deploy more than 2,300 of the devices throughout the student living spaces, including in every student residence hall room and student apartments on campus. So Arizona State University put Echo Dots in student spaces last year, but SLU's new initiative seems to be the first time a university has put an Echo Dot in all student living quarters. So the SLU Echo Dots, running on Amazon's Alexa for Business platform, will be modified to answer 100 plus SLU related questions about things like library hours, basketball games, campus events, and university office locations. The university's promotional video for the device even shows a freshman asking how long can pizza stay out and telling the device to play a guided meditation, because of course students love pizza and breathing exercises. And as the students get older, he asks questions, and in the video he asks questions about his career prospects and graduation, because the little bot disc has been a companion through all of his late night study sessions. And SLU addresses some of its own questions about the Echo Dots on the university website, like did the funding for the Echo Dots come from tuition? And the answer is apparently no. The Echoes have come to the university thanks in part to a partnership with Amazon and university capital funding. And looks like we just received a $20 donation from Stephen John Asante. Thank you so much. He said, long time no see. Looking forward to my interview with Max Kleiber. Thank you so much for that, Stephen John Asante. We will have to double check with Joe about that interview, so stay tuned. But of course, we always love talking to you here on the YouTube chat and on Twitter as well. Remember, you can message us and you can message me at Alyssa RSBN if you have any story ideas you'd like to share. So another question many students are asking is, I'm concerned about my privacy with Alexa. What information does the Echo Dot in my residence hall room keep about me? And the answer is that SLU is using Amazon Alexa for business platforms, so the Echoes are going to be attached to a central SLU system and not individual accounts. And SLU claims Alexa does not keep recordings of asked questions. The SLU system apparently does not keep personal information on users, and all use currently is anonymous. Also, it looks like Randall Tom, one of our front row Joes and regulars, said, I sent a donation via PayPal. Thank you so much for that, Randall Tom. Really appreciate you, and it was so great seeing you recently at the last rally. So thank you very much for that. And Watchman 117, Ronnie Mercer said, I'm out later, guys. Have a great night. Ronnie, thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so Amazon did not immediately respond to a Gizmodo request for comment on SLU's use of the devices and privacy concerns that may come with having a voice-controlled device in student living spaces. And wow, just received another donation, $10 from Jesus is Lord 5454, who said, let's make tonight a good one. Thank you so much, Jesus is Lord. Really, really appreciate you and all of your support and just how you have been with me ever since I started at my first Nashville rally. Thank you so much for your support. So the SLU Vice President and Chief Information Officer, David Hickanson, believes the infestation of Echo Dots will improve student efficiency. He said, every minute we can save our students from having to search for the information they need online is another minute they can spend focused on what matters most, their education. And if a student does not want an Echo Dot in their room and their roommate feels the same, the university site advises them to unplug the device and store it in a safe location, of course, because if they lose the Echo Dot, they will have to pay a charge for it. And we just received a $1 donation from Low IQ Person. Thank you so much, Low. Really appreciate you. Okay, and I have one more interesting story from Nate Skate from NPR. So Los Angeles is deploying body scanners to screen metro riders. And I'll show you guys a picture real quick. You can see, I'm going to switch screens real quick. You can see right here, so before they enter the metro, a passenger at Union Station in Los Angeles is scanned with through vision technology designed to reveal reveal suspicious objects on people during a TSA demonstration on Tuesday. So Los Angeles's public transit system has announced that it was the first in the U.S. to purchase millimeter wave scanners to screen metro riders for suspicious objects as they move through the station. And the technology will help detect weapon and explosive device security threats on the country's transit system. The system said this in a joint press release with the TSA on Tuesday. And a spokesman for the LA Metro tells NPR that the system has ordered several units at approximately $100,000 each. The portable body scanners use technology similar to the devices installed in airports to look for metal and non-metal objects concealed in clothing, but unlike those scanners, they don't release any form of radiation. Instead, they detect radiation released by riders' bodies. And they do not require passengers to line up and pass through the system one by one. The through-vision screening devices can monitor people as they walk through the metro station as they normally do. And the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority partnered with TSA to test various screening devices before picking the through-vision model. And it's not clear precisely when the devices will be put into general use. For public transit systems, such scanners are designed specifically to mitigate the suicide bomber threat, according to Polly Hansen, the Director of Security and Emergency Management at the American Public Transportation Association. And they can also be used in other contexts, like at a sporting venue to crack down on smuggled alcohol, but transit systems are generally using them to watch for explosive vests. And passive scanners are better suited for metro systems than walk-through scanners that you might see at airports, and not just because of the sheer volume of mass transit users. The system moves much faster. For one, you can't ask people to arrive an hour early. At the airport, you're funneled through one specific location. Mass transit, there are multiple fares, and some systems are barrierless, and it just currently doesn't lend itself to the kind of security that's in an airport. And Kyle Stokes, a reporter with member station KPCC, watched one of the portable passive scanners in action this year during testing, and he said most of the commuters who entered the scanner's field of vision appeared as green amorphous blobs on the screen of a laptop. The scanner is calibrated to display the natural heat waves emitted by the human body without revealing too many intimate details. And poet Jasmine Ruse just donated $2. Thank you so very much. And she said, thank you for discussing these important stories. Thank you so much, Jasmine, and for sharing those with me earlier today. That was super helpful. Enjoyed talking about the story about the baker. So thank you very much for that. And Pamela M., no, we are not on Gab. Okay, so this reporter that we were discussing, Kyle Stokes, also said, but several officials tested the system Tuesday morning by wearing objects under their shirts, emulating an explosive device. When they entered the device's field of vision, the hidden objects showed on the scanner screen are black masses in the center of their green-colored bodies. And the idea, officials say, is that law enforcement officers can use these test results to identify someone who might be carrying something dangerous and then pull that person aside for further screening. And this is according to TSA spokeswoman Lori Dankers. So by trips taken, the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority's rail system is the 9th largest metro or subway public transit system in the United States. And Stokes notes that more people ride the metro system's trains on an average weekday than fly through the Los Angeles International Airport. So not every rider will be screened on any given day. The new devices will be placed at only a few locations in the system. Because they're portable, they can be moved around either randomly or to respond to specific concerns. And the Los Angeles Times reports that signage will warn LA Metro riders that they are approaching an area where they are subject to screening, but that opting out of the screening may require turning around and leaving the station. And the TSA has been testing various passive millimeter wave screening devices in the LA Metro for about a year. And the agency has also been testing similar devices in other public transportation systems, including in the San Francisco BART and New Jersey Transit, as well as in the Amtrak sections of Penn Station in New York City and Union Station in Washington, D.C. That was very interesting. Thank you so much, Nate Skate, for sharing that article with me. Really appreciate you. And for all of those that may want to share a news story that I've missed tonight and haven't yet, remember you can send it to me on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN. You can see my Twitter handle right here at the bottom of the screen. Okay. So I'm going to move on, and I want to take a quick second to share with you guys kind of what RSBN is. If maybe you're not sure, I want to take a quick second to do that. So we are a conservative online news network, but we still try to be non-biased and report the facts to you guys and show you both sides of the story. And we actually get to travel to political rallies all around the country, President Trump rallies specifically, and it's an honor that we're able to do so. And when we go there, we actually show you guys the crowds. There are thousands of people there that the mainstream media often fails to report. And so we're really blessed to be able to go to the rallies and to show you the crowds. We get in the middle of them. We interview them, and it is such a blessing to get to know everyone. We ask, why they're there, if it's their first rally, different things like that, and really just get to know people. And by the end of the rallies, we have a lot of new friends, and we do stream, of course, President Trump's entire speech for you as well. And you can see it on here, however you're watching, whether it is our YouTube channel, Facebook, Twitter, or on our website, you can watch that speech. And so it's awesome that we're able to do that. Anyways, as you can imagine, it is very expensive to go to these rallies. It's a minimum of $5,000 each time. We usually send a crew of about 5 people, 3 or 4 reporters and 1 or 2 cameramen, and it is very expensive. So, that includes all the travel expenses, plane tickets, rental cars, food, and then of course we're paying a lot for our equipment as well. Just to have that live view stream up is a couple $100s. So if you really like what you're seeing here, you like these broadcasts and you really want to send us to rallies, there are different ways that you can donate and support us. One way you'll be able to see right here in the YouTube chat. If you are watching on YouTube, it's the $sign in the bottom left corner of the chat room called the Super Chat, and you can just type your message with your name. It'll pop up in a bright color, and I will share it with the whole world. And so, it is really a lot of fun to, be able to go and share these rallies with you guys. And you can also donate through our website. And I will show you guys how to do that real quick if you never have before. You go to rsbnetwork.com. And at the top you can see this red bar here. Here, I'm going to move this over real quick. Okay, so you can see the red bar up here at the top, and the fourth tab over, you just click donate. And there are different options of how you can donate. You can click the first one if you'd like to donate with PayPal or a credit card. And with PayPal, it's really great because we actually get to keep 90% of your donation. They only keep 10%, whereas on YouTube, they do keep 30% of the donation and we get to keep 70%. So on PayPal right here, you can just enter your debit or credit card information, your billing address, and then your contact information. And also, maybe you've been watching RSBN for a long time. You feel a little more invested with us and you want to make sure that we're still able to get to these rallies. You can actually become a patron on patreon.com. So you can click that second link there. And if you're going to it separately, you can see up at the top, it's patreon.com/RSBN, Patreon with an E. And Patreon's really fun because you can actually receive RSBN swag, different things to remember us throughout the day and to remember to watch us, like hats, pens, pencils, stickers, mugs, t-shirts, and blankets. And it's a lot of fun. And you can choose your tier. There are different tiers on Patreon, from entry level, bronze, silver, gold, and it goes up depending on how much money you're donating a month, platinum, diamond, double diamond, and all access. And that is when you are donating $500 or more a month. So also that last way to donate, some of our moderators are already commenting that. Thank you so much, mods. You can send a check directly to our P.O. Box here in Auburn. If you're uncomfortable donating online, we completely understand that. And our address is 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344 in Auburn, Alabama, 36830. And it was an honor. I know I said this earlier in my White House press briefing broadcast, but yesterday I got to go through those checks with Joe and the handwritten letters. And the handwritten letters were just so special. And it was such an honor to go through them, really just to see what we mean to you guys, how we can help you guys, and what more you want to see out of RSBN. And speaking of donations, we just received a $5 donation from Larry Stokes. Thank you so much, Larry. Really appreciate you. That'll definitely help us get to our next rally on Tuesday in Charleston, West Virginia. Okay, and it looks like I just got an article from one of our fantastic reporters, Tom O'Neill. Thank you so much, Tom, for sending me that. Wow, and this is something we were following late last night to see if H. Brooks Page would win that Republican nomination to run against Bernie Sanders for the Senate race. And according to newrepublic.com, he did. So thank you so much, Tom, for sharing that. And I'm going to go into it a little bit more with you guys. So H. Brooke Page won 5. It says he wins 5 or 6 GOP nomination slots in Vermont. I think it was actually 6. So he is also going to be a Republican candidate in one of Vermont's congressional districts, the Republican candidate for auditor in Vermont, the Republican candidate for attorney general in Vermont, and the Republican candidate for Secretary of State in Vermont. And finally, although it says voting is tight, as of Tuesday, he was also on track to be the Republican candidate for treasurer. And you can see, you can't see, now you can, I'm switching it over, a picture of H. Brooke Page in his top hat. We were we spent a long time last night. Those of you that were with me last night, thank you so much for being here until midnight, talking about H. Brooke Page, learning about his stances on all of the different issues. Many of you described him as timeless and said that you would like to see him debate Senator Bernie Sanders for that spot. Okay, so it continues on. How did Page end up with 5 or 6 Republican nominations? Will he really run for all those? What will happen if he wins more than one? And the answer to these questions has to do with Page wanting to protect Vermont's small Republican Party from being taken over by Democrats. And as Vermont Public Radio explains, as you may be aware, for a number of years, the Democrats have been crossing over in the primary and taking advantage of the fact that the Republican Party did not have candidates for all the slots in the primary. About 800 to 900, and sometimes a few more Democrats would religiously grab Republican ballots and write in the published candidates from their Democratic primary ballot. And obviously, with no other candidates running, there was no concerted effort on the part of the Republicans to fill the slots in the primary. And if there's a vacancy on the primary ballot, the Republican Party in Vermont is then allowed to nominate someone by petition to run for that office in the general election. And it's Page's hope that by representing Republicans in every race, Democrats will not be able to write in a candidate in the August primary, and should Page choose to bow out, his party can select a candidate to run for the position in the November general election. And yesterday when we were looking into this, like why would he run for 6 different positions? He actually said that he just wanted to secure that Republican spot, and then he would open it up in different areas for other Republican Party candidates to fill. But he did not say if he had a favorite or not, or a position that he really wanted to win over all the others. So we will just have to stay tuned to see. Thank you so much, Tom, for sharing that article. Really appreciate you. And wow, we just received a $30 donation from Rick Moore. Thank you so much for that. He said, rally dinner on me. Thank you so much, Rick. I will definitely have to let everyone know that you paid for our dinner. Thank you so much on Tuesday. It's going to be such a blast. I'm so excited. And we may even have more rallies come up a couple days after this one. It's going to be crazy. So we're going to have to be prepared. Okay, and I want to move on. Many of you may have heard this, and I'm going to show you a video too of New York Governor Andrew Cuomo saying that America was never that great. Really ridiculous. I can't believe he said this. So I'm going to show you guys that video first, and then we will expand on it a little bit. And this is from Fox News.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great. We have not reached greatness. We will reach greatness when every American is fully engaged. We will reach greatness when discrimination and stereotyping against women, 51% of our population, is gone.
It took guts to start.
So you guys just saw that video. Really crazy that he is saying that America was never great. So I'm going to expand on this for you guys. And this is from Fox News. So New York Governor Andrew Cuomo may have just handed Republicans a ready-made campaign ad for his rumored 2020 presidential bid by declaring today that America was never that great. The Democratic star made the seemingly offhand remark as part of his rebuke of President Trump's Make America Great Again slogan during a bill signing in New York, but the line drew gasps from the crowd, as you may have just heard watching that video. So he said, Cuomo said, we're not going to make America great again. It was never that great. And he also said, we have not reached greatness. We will reach greatness when every American is fully engaged. We will reach greatness when discrimination and stereotyping against women, 51% of our population, is gone, and every woman's full potential is realized and unleashed, and every woman is making her full contribution. And within hours, he tried walking it back. He said the governor believes, his spokeswoman tried to do some damage control. She said the governor believes America is great and that her full greatness will be fully realized when every man, woman, and child has full equality. America has not yet reached its maximum potential. Cuomo's press secretary, Danny Lever, said in a statement, when the president speaks about making America great again, going back in time, he ignores the pain so many endured and that we suffered from slavery, discrimination, segregation, sexism, and marginalized women's contributions. The governor believes that when everyone is fully included and everyone is contributing to their maximum potential, that is when America will achieve maximum greatness. And Paul Gold just asked, when is the next Trump rally? It is next Tuesday in Charleston, West Virginia, and we will be able to go to it. So stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll be taking our new equipment with us, so hopefully it will all work very smoothly. So Cuomo's never that great line tore through social media today as journalists and his political rivals seized on that remark. And Republican gubernatorial candidate Mark Molinaro said America, with its imperfections, has always been great. and called on Cuomo to apologize. And Molinaro said in a statement, "This governor is so determined to distract voters from his failed policies and corrupted administration that he's willing to dismiss the steady, determined march of the American people, making and remaking the greatness of America. Mr. Cuomo owes the nation an apology. He should be ashamed of himself." And Cuomo for months has been positioning himself as one of the biggest gubernatorial foes of the Trump White House. And he's also facing a primary challenge from the left from actress and activist Cynthia Nixon. Nixon has made a number of controversial statements, including calling Immigration and Customs Enforcement a terrorist organization, and has claimed Cuomo is shifting to the left in response. And Nixon said in a speech in May, "It's called the Cynthia effect. Since I got in the race, Cuomo has moved left not only on marijuana, but climate change, teacher evaluation, restoring voting rights, and banning plastic bags." But it remains to be seen whether Cuomo's stances in the New York race could come back to haunt a 2020 bid. Earlier this week, while addressing New York Republicans, President Trump dared Cuomo to run against him. And President Trump said in Utica, New York, "Please do it, please. Anybody that runs against Trump suffers." And remember, I know I say this a lot, but I want to share stories that are interesting to you guys too. So if you have anything that you want me to research, a current news story going on, no matter what it is, even if it's a controversy, comment it right here in the YouTube chat. Or if you happen to find one yourself, send it to me on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN. That would be much appreciated. Thank you. So now I'm going to move on. I have a couple world stories for you guys that are very interesting. And these are from Reuters. So the first one, the US and Mexico are going to set up a joint team to fight drug cartels. So US and Mexican law enforcement authorities will set up a joint team based in Chicago targeting the leaders and finances of drug cartels that ship opioids into the United States, aiming to staunch a spike in overdose deaths, according to officials said today. But real quick, yes, thank you so much, Ronnie Mercer. He just sent me the Andrew Cuomo story again. I'm going to tell him that I just reported on it. Sorry, I was reading a tweet. Okay. So the announcement of a fresh effort at a cooperation on security issues comes at a time of strained relations between the two neighboring countries and around 4 months before President-elect Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, a left-leaning nationalist, is due to take power in Mexico. So Lopez Obrador has vowed to shake up Mexico's war on drug cartels and wants to rewrite the rules, aides have said, suggesting negotiated peace and amnesties rather than a hardline strategy that critics say has only perpetuated violence. And he also said he wants to reset relations with the United States, which have been rocky since Donald Trump became president. And Mexico's Deputy Attorney General for the U.S. Specialized Investigation of Federal Crimes Unit, Felipe de Jesus Munoz Vasquez, said, "We are sure the next president of the Republic will be willing to collaborate in the fight against organized crime." And there was no immediate comment on Wednesday from Lopez Obrador's team, but his future security minister, Alfonso Durazo, has said all cooperation agreements between the two countries will be reviewed. And that includes the decade-old $2.9 million Merida initiative that directs aid from U.S. agencies to Mexico to fight organized crime and drug trafficking, said Durazo earlier this month. And Lopez Obrador wants to refocus aid to social and economic projects. Targeting cartel finances was key in stopping the flow of drugs, because the sole purpose of these entities is one thing and one thing only: money, according to Anthony Williams, the chief of operations for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. And he said this today. So Mexico remains the principal highway for cocaine to the United States and has become the top source of heroin, which is fueling a surge in opioid addiction in the United States. And it's also a major supplier of methamphetamines. So Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson said Mexican cartels were responsible for much of the illegal drugs flowing into the nation's third largest city, which has been plagued by gang violence and shootings. And officials and security experts in the United States have applauded long-running bilateral efforts to crack down on drug gangs during the administration of outgoing President Enrique Pena Nieto and previously. And for the past 12 years, Mexico has fought the violent cartels by deploying thousands of police, soldiers, and intelligence officers. And today, Mexico said it was offering a 30 million peso or $1.6 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Nemesio Oseguera, whose cartel is blamed for driving heroin shipments to the United States. So known as El Mencho, Oseguera has risen to become Mexico's most wanted drug lord after Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was extradited to the United States last year to face trial. And in March, U.S. agents in Chicago named El Mencho public enemy number 1 and blamed his gang for using extreme violence to expand their share of the heroin trade. And the United States is offering $5 million for information leading to his capture. So moving on back to Turkey, I have the latest story about Turkey and U.S. relations from today. This is from Reuters as well. So Turkey says they are ready to discuss issues with U.S. without threats. So Turkey is ready to discuss its ongoing issues with the United States as long as there are no threats, according to Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu, amid a widening dispute between the NATO allies that has sent the Turkish currency plunging. So speaking to ambassadors in Ankara, Cavusoglu also said Turkey's relations with the European Union were on a firmer basis and normalizing once again. And he said he would meet with the European Commission's deputy head, Frans Timmermans, to speed up talks on visa liberalization for Turks, while Turkish and Russian working groups would hold talks on visa-free travel to Russia after the Muslim Eid holiday next week. Meanwhile, and you may have heard this earlier today during that White House press briefing, the White House on Wednesday condemned Turkey's doubling of tariffs on U.S. cars, alcohol, and tobacco imports, calling the action a step in the wrong direction. So Turkey recently took action in response to what is called the Trump administration's attack on its economy. So the United States doubled tariffs on Turkish steel and aluminum last week, which contributed to a tumble in the Turkish lira. And White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said earlier today the tariffs from Turkey are certainly regrettable and a step in the wrong direction. The tariffs that the United States placed on Turkey were out of national security interests. Theirs are out of retaliation. And tensions between the two NATO allies have been strained amid Turkey's detention of American pastor Andrew Brunson. And Turkey has accused Brunson of backing a coup attempt against Erdogan, I want to say it right, 2 years ago. So in addition to its decision to ramp up tariffs on imports of Turkish steel and aluminum, the Trump administration earlier this month imposed sanctions on two top officials in Turkish President Erdogan's cabinet as part of its efforts to pressure Turkey into freeing Pastor Andrew Brunson. And Press Secretary Sanders also said Brunson's release would not lead to an easing in the tariffs, but it could lead to an easing in the sanctions. She also said the tariffs that are in place on steel will not be removed with the release of Pastor Brunson. Those tariffs are specific to national security. And she said the sanctions, however, that have been placed on Turkey are specific to Pastor Brunson and others that we feel are being held unfairly, and we would consider at that point. And it looks like I may have a new message, Twitter, from you guys. I'm going to check that. Emma Tex thanked me for addressing the Cuomo story. Thank you so much, Emma Tex, for sharing it with me as well. I knew it was one you guys wanted to hear. About 5 of you sent it to me all throughout the day. And another world story for you guys while we are talking about Turkey. And this is from Reuters as well. Qatar to aid Turkey, currency rallies, but U.S. says tariffs to stay. And this is from Reuters, and we just got a $10 donation from Last Cigarette over on YouTube. Thank you so much, Last Cigarette. Really appreciate you. And that will be super helpful for our rally that we are going to next week in Charleston, West Virginia. And British Patriot said, Trump just tweeted about Cuomo. Again. Or, no, he hasn't yet. This is the first one. Okay, let me see. I want to share that tweet with you guys. Okay, I'm going to switch screens so I can show it to you real quick. Thank you, British Patriot, for commenting that. Okay, President Trump tweeted out, "We're not going to make America great again. It never was that great," quoting Cuomo. He said, "Can you believe this is the governor of the highest tax state in the U.S., Andrew Cuomo, having a total meltdown?" I am not surprised that he had a Twitter response to that. But I'm going to move back over to this world story of Qatar to aid Turkey. Currency rallies, but U.S. says tariffs to stay. So today, the U.S. ruled out removing steel tariffs that have contributed to a currency crisis in Turkey, even if Ankara frees U.S. pastor, as Qatar pledged $15 billion in an investment to Turkey, supporting a rise in the Turkish lira. So the White House stance appeared to give Turkish authorities little incentive to work for the release of Andrew Brunson, a pastor on trial in Turkey on terrorism charges, in whose case Turkish officials have said was a matter for the courts. So this dispute is one of several between NATO allies, including diverging interests in Syria and U.S. objections to Ankara's ambition to buy Russian defense systems that have contributed to instability in Turkish financial markets. So while the Brunson matter appeared far from being resolved, Turkish President Erdogan got a shot in the arm from Qatar's emir, who approved a package of economic projects, investments, and deposits after the two met in Ankara. So the Qatari money will be channeled into banks and financial markets, according to a Turkish government source. And the move by Turkey's Gulf ally offered further support to a lira rally after the Turkish central bank tightened liquidity and curbed selling of the currency. And the Turkish lira has lost nearly 40% against the dollar this year, driven by worries over Erdogan's growing control over the economy and his repeated calls for lower interest rates despite high inflation. So the debut with the United States focused on a tit-for-tat tariff row, and Turkey's detention of Brunson helped turn the currency's steady decline into meltdown. So it touched a record low of 7.24 to the dollar early on Monday, rattling global stock markets and threatening the stability of Turkey's financial sector. And President Donald Trump doubled tariffs on Turkish metals exports to the United States last week, prompting Turkey, which says it will not bow to threats, to raise tariffs on U.S. cars, alcohol, and tobacco by the same amount on Wednesday. And the White House called the Turkish response a step in the wrong direction and signaled a hard line on Brunson's release. And Vice President Mike Pence said in a tweet, "Pastor Andrew Brunson is an innocent man held in Turkey, and justice demands that he be released. Turkey would do well not to test President Trump's resolve to see Americans who are wrongfully imprisoned in foreign lands returned home to the United States." And Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said earlier today that the U.S. had no plan to remove the steel tariffs if Brunson were released because that was of national security interest, though she said it could remove sanctions imposed on two senior Turkish officials. So the United States sanctioned Justice Minister Abdulhamid Gul and Interior Minister Suleiman Soylu, blaming both for being involved in the arrest and detention of Brunson, who is accused of backing a coup attempt against Erdogan 2 years ago. And this is something that he denies. And Turkish Foreign Minister Cavusoglu struck a somewhat conciliatory note, saying Turkey was ready to discuss its issues with the United States as long as there are no threats. And despite the political tensions, the lira rebounded some 6% on Wednesday, strengthening to around 6.0 to the dollar. And there was also optimism about better relations with the European Union after a Turkish court released 2 Greek soldiers pending trial. And Cavusoglu said ties with the bloc, long strained, were on a firmer basis and had started normalizing. And a banking watchdog step to limit foreign exchange swap transactions also helped the currency. Now, according to Christian Maggiano, head of emerging market strategy at TD Securities, he said they are squeezing lira liquidity out of the system now and pushing interest rates higher. And he said rates have gone up by 10%. The central bank has not done this through a change in the benchmark rates, but they are squeezing liquidity, so the result is the same. And the lira firmed as far as 5.75 against the dollar on Wednesday and stood at 5.90 at 20:58 GMT. And the finance minister will seek to reassure international investors on Thursday in a conference call for which a ministry official said 3,000 people had signed up. And the chief executive of Turkey's Akbank said the banking sector remained strong and the measures taken to support the market had started to have an impact, adding that there was no withdrawal of deposits. And there was no resolution to the Brunson case in sight. On Wednesday, a court in Izmir, where Brunson is on trial, rejected his appeal to be released from house arrest. And an upper court had yet to rule on the appeal, his lawyer told Reuters. And in another high-profile case, a Turkish court freed Taner Kılıç, the local chair of Amnesty International, a researcher from the rights group said. Okay, and I'm going to move on to the next story in a second. But I'm going to take a quick second break to work out some technical things. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Hey guys, I'm back. We were just working out some audio things, so thank you so much for staying tuned. And I wanted to check Facebook as well. I realized I haven't yet, and I'm really sorry about that. And I want to make sure that you guys on Facebook don't have any questions or comments or stories that you want me to look up tonight. So I'm checking real quick. If you are still in the Facebook chat, hey to Namish Sani, Jeff Lewis, Albert Naughty, Mitchell Holland, Caroline Hudson, Belinda M. Lee, and Joy Patterson. So Mashi Bandit said, when is the next Trump rally? It is actually Tuesday in Charleston, West Virginia, and we will be able to go. So please stay tuned for that. It is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, switching over now to kind of a difficult story, and I'm going to put a picture up so that you guys will be able to see who I'm talking about. So this is Austin Tice, and he is a journalist that was seized in Syria actually 6 years ago, and his parents are now speaking out about it after 6 years, confident that he is alive. And I'm going to share with you guys the story about it from New York Times. So 6 years after Austin Tice, who's actually a journalist and a Marine veteran, was abducted while reporting on the war in Syria, his parents expressed confidence on Tuesday that he was alive. And his parents are Mark and Deborah Tice. I'll show you guys a picture of them real quick. His parents are Mark and Deborah Tice, and they spent the anniversary of his disappearance publicizing efforts to free their son, 37, who they believe remains a captive somewhere in Syria, entangled in the war. And his mother said on an interview with NBC's Today, it seems like in many ways the time has gone so quickly, but we know that for Austin it must be grinding on. And when asked what keeps them optimistic, the father said, well, we know he's alive and we're sure he wants to come home. And they also released a video about his abduction called Now is the Time to Free Austin Tice, which emphasized the historic events over the past 6 years that their son had missed. And he has come to symbolize the lethal hazards for news workers covering the war in Syria, where dozens have been abducted. And at least 5 other journalists remain in Syria, and 122 have been killed since the conflict began in 2011, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists and Advocacy Group. And Mr. Tice was actually attending Georgetown Law School in 2012 when he decided to go to Syria as a freelance journalist to report on the war through its impact on ordinary Syrians, filing articles for McClatchy, The Washington Post, and other news organizations. And he was detained at a checkpoint on August 14th, 2012, near Damascus, days before he planned to depart the country. And 5 weeks later, a video actually emerged showing that Tice had been blindfolded and held by unidentified armed men. And there was no message except the title, Austin Tice, Still Alive. And his parents have become unspoken advocates for him and other Americans seized abroad and have visited Syria to press for Mr. Tice's release. They did not see why they believed he had survived after 6 years, and it remains unclear precisely who abducted Mr. Tice. And I'll show you guys a picture of him again, or what their demands have been. And one of our moderators, Guinevere, just got here. Welcome, Guinevere, in the YouTube chat room. And LJ, good to have both of you. LJ, I'm sure you've been here, just didn't shout you out earlier. So his mother, Deborah Tice, said on Sunday, the American government and the Syrian government need to engage directly to secure Austin's safe release. And more information from Cron.com. So the Tice's visit to the nation's capital comes as the Trump administration has prioritized the recovery of American hostages, including the May release of 3 Americans held prisoner in North Korea and the July freeing of a Houston native jailed in Vietnam, and amid a shift in the U.S. government's efforts to locate Tice in recent years. So in April, the FBI announced that it was offering a $1 million reward for information leading to Tice's whereabouts and his return to the U.S. And Margot Ewin, the North American director for Reporters Without Borders, the press freedom watchdog, said Tice's story needs to remain a priority for American journalists. And she said, it's certainly challenging the way news is produced and shared these days to keep the public's attention on Austin because he's been gone so long. But when people do hear about Austin, most are supportive and want to help, and the way they can help is by spreading the word about his case. And according to Reporters Without Borders, more foreign journalists are held captive in Syria than anywhere else, with 3 people missing for longer than 5 years. And of those, Tice is the lone American being held abroad. Kevin Patrick Dawes, a photographer from California, was kidnapped in 2012 by government forces and released 4 years later. And Jordanian journalist Bashar al-Kaddoumi and British reporter John Cantley have been held captive there since 2012, a Reporters Without Borders report from last year noted. And the Tices have steadfastly pushed to keep attention focused on Austin's plight and to bring him home. And since 2012, they've visited dozens of government officials. They've worked with Clear Channel to show Tice's story on billboards around Houston, launched a campaign in newspapers nationwide to highlight his story. They traveled to the Middle East in search of information about their son's whereabouts and appeared on major TV networks to press for his release. And U.S. Senator John Cornyn, a Republican in Texas, said Monday that Tice's absence over the past 6 years has proved an unimaginable and devastating time for his family and friends. And Cornyn said, I'm in awe of their perseverance as they continue their relentless push to bring him home. I'm thankful the Trump administration shares my desire to see him come home as soon as possible. And officials from the news organizations where Tice worked have also continued to press for his return and raise awareness about his work. Washington Post editor Douglas Gell said that Tice's stories from Syria contributed important on-the-ground reporting at a decisive phase in the conflict. And his family has, and this is from Douglas Gell, he said his family has endured unimaginable pain as a result of his captivity. His parents, Deborah and Mark Tice, have championed his cause with passion, courage, and fortitude. And officials at the McClatchy newspaper chain penned op-eds calling for Tice's release. Last week, company officials raised flags emblazoned with the phrase "Free Austin Tice" at its 33 newsrooms across the country, another move meant to bring attention to its absence. And Team Grieve, McClatchy's vice president of news, said, "We owe it to Austin, to his family, and to journalists everywhere to keep telling his story. And it's a somber reminder for all Americans about the risks journalists take every day to do their jobs and keep us informed." And moving on, but first, guys, please keep his search in your thoughts and prayers, and keep his family and friends in your thoughts and prayers, along with the other journalists that are still detained in Syria. And moving on, I wanted to give a shout out over on the YouTube chat. Top Flight Security just donated $45. Thank you so much, Top Flight Security. Really appreciate you. And he said 45 for 45 MAGA. Thank you very much. That'll definitely help us get to our next rally in Charleston, West Virginia. So I want to throw out my Twitter handle one more time for you guys. It's at the bottom here, at Alyssa RSBN. If you have any stories that I have not shared with you yet, please feel free to share them with me on Twitter, and I will report them to everyone watching. So also, I have a really sad story for you guys from Fox News in New Haven, Connecticut, something that happened just today. So up to 60 people overdosed in New Haven in a park as park visitors watched in horror. So as many as 60 people overdosed on what's believed to have been synthetic marijuana at or near a Connecticut city park as fellow park goers watched in horror. And officials said most of the overdoses happened on the New Haven Green throughout the day on Wednesday. And according to an unidentified bystander, they shouted, "We have a guy laid out on the alleyway, unresponsive, eyes wide open. He's out cold." And we just received a $5 donation from Barnburger 9811. Thank you so much for that. Who said, "Please go cover the emergency plane landing in North Carolina." I will check on that right now. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it happened earlier today. I'm surprised I didn't see it yet. Okay, so this is from ABC 7 News, and it was actually a Chicago-bound flight that made an emergency landing in North Carolina. So an American Airlines flight headed to Chicago made an emergency landing Wednesday morning shortly after taking off from Charlotte Douglas International Airport in North Carolina. So several witnesses reported seeing flames coming from the airplane while it was in the sky, And Matthew Snellings, a passenger on flight 1668, said that he heard a loud noise and felt a brisk movement as the plane ascended, and the plane continued to climb and circled the airport. And he said he couldn't see smoke or flames since he was sitting far from the engines. And Snelling said he overheard another passenger talking about seeing smoke coming from an engine. And Snellings said the pilot gave passengers updates as the situation unfolded. And the pilot declared an emergency after there was a pressure stall in one of the engines. And American Airlines officials said the problem was a mechanical issue, not an engine fire. And the flight landed safely and passengers were moved to another plane. And Snellings praised the crew for being helpful during the emergency landing. But I'm going to check over on Twitter as well and see what it's saying about it. Okay, so this must be, I'm sorry about that, a different flight. Maybe two made an emergency landing in North Carolina. So Breaking 911 is saying a plane makes an emergency landing at Raleigh, North Carolina International Airport. Mass casualty incident declared. And this was actually a Frontier Airlines flight that made an emergency landing at Raleigh-Durham International Airport Wednesday evening. So flight 1674 was scheduled to travel from Orlando to Philadelphia. And according to WRAL, multiple passengers fell ill and requested medical assistance upon arrival, and an infant child was also being treated. So officials gave few details about exactly what prompted the emergency, but local media reports passengers complaining of an unknown odor. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry about that. It came from the Breaking 911 website. Okay. So also, I'm going to show you guys some pictures over on Twitter. We're also getting reports in that Reagan International Airport in DC has a major power outage. So someone in the airport tweeted out, DCA airport has no power. Gate 35X doesn't even have emergency lighting. Buses en route to their flights were forced to go back to the terminal. You can kind of see people there lit up by their phones, but it is just very dark in DCA. And here is another view of the blackout. I'll show you guys some different pictures. And yes, swoosh for Trump, it did happen in Atlanta a few months ago. Wow, this is very unfortunate. Someone tweeted out 20 hours of traveling 9,000 miles waiting at baggage claim to go home. And of course, the power goes out at Reagan. And it looks like it's been for about an hour so far. If this source is right, 20 minutes ago, Michael Conathan tweeted, now a full 30 minutes since power went out at DCA. No announcements, no info in terminal, only emergency lights and automated PA announcements. We all know where the USO lounge is. Okay, and I'm going to try to find some more information for you guys about that situation. So the Reagan Airport official Twitter account tweeted out, we are aware of an airport-wide power outage and investigating. Updates to follow at 9:50 p.m. Eastern. And according to NBC Washington 4 News, terminals, of course, have gone dark due to a power outage, and travelers are tweeting photos and videos of the airport's dark corridors and waiting areas. And a spokesperson for the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority says there is a Dominion energy issue causing the outage, and the airport's authority is working with Dominion to get power restored. And Reagan National has generators supplying energy to critical services, the spokesperson said. And the spokesperson said that most flights for the night had taken off and there should not be a major disruption to flight traffic. But according to Fox 5 DC, inbound and outbound flights have been put on hold, according to an airport spokesperson. And several people on Twitter have posted photos and videos of the lights being out inside the airport. And I'm going to show you guys, Heather Timmons is a reporter who covers the White House in DC for QZ. She is tweeting out a lot about it. She tweeted out a picture, and said lone guy handing bags out by hand, calling flight numbers. And then she tweeted out, Virginia Power has confirmed the airport isn't getting any electricity. A garbled announcement said, I think the backup lights just went out. And then she tweeted out, the electricity just went out at Reagan National Airport, and folks are wandering around trying to find their stranded bags on the stalled luggage belt by phone light. Infrastructure Week. And I'll zoom in to show you guys those pictures. And I want to try to find some more information about it, if there is any, and also that plane crash in North Carolina. So stay tuned. So flightstats.com actually says that the delay status is actually very low in DCA. But if you back up, it says it is missing power. So that is definitely going to hold up some flights. So a Sky Harbor spokesperson told KTAR News 92.3 FM that the outage was not showing any impact to operations at this time, but they encourage flyers to contact their airline and the Reagan Airport for additional information. And Samuel Breslau tweeted out, power outage at Reagan Airport, only minimal lighting, no displays. I asked flight staff if this happens sometimes. They said they've never seen anything like it. Okay, and I want to switch back over to that emergency plane landing. And this is from WRAL. So, odor in cabin prompts emergency landing at RDU. Several passengers treated. Several passengers were receiving treatment after a Frontier Airlines flight made an emergency landing Wednesday night at Raleigh-Durham International Airport. An official said Flight 1674 which was traveling from Orlando, Florida to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, was diverted, landed without incident, and taxied to a gate at Terminal 2 JAT about 7:15 p.m. And a Frontier Airlines spokeswoman said an unknown odor in the cabin prompted the emergency landing. And authorities said 3 passengers were taken to Wake Med Briar Creek and 5 were treated at the scene. And emergency officials said many passenger complaints were minor, with people saying they did not feel well. And Frontier Airlines said 230 passengers and 7 crew members were on board on the plane. And I'm going to take a quick break to check something real quick, but I will be right back, so don't go anywhere. Hey guys, so we are going to switch it over and start a separate breaking news stream on the power out at DC right now. So hop on over to that as soon as we create it. And thank you so much for tuning in to my nightly news recap. I appreciate each and every single one of you, and I'll see you in just a few minutes.